Tonight, we are moving away from all the politics, away from US-Ghana military deal, the Opuni trial, and others. We are looking at HR. The Human Resource Department is supposed to serve as an interface between management and employees, while some believe that HR practitioners are playing this role objectively and effectively. Many others believe otherwise. In an increasingly competitive world where profit is paramount, is the HR professionals able to maneuver through the tangle of relationships and power dynamics that hold sway in every organization? To discuss these and more, I have with me Mrs. Lawson, General Manager, Human Resource, Heritage Bank Limited, and you are watching The Hard Truth. My name is Nana Akusia Kunedu Asante Samuels, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and Dawa Industrial City, supported by Paul's Gym Fitness. You are watching The Hard Truth, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and Dawa Industrial City and Paul's Fitness Ghana. Mrs. Lawson is the head of HR at Heritage Bank Limited. Welcome to The Hard Truth.
Thank you.
You look well. I must say that this woman here, it's one of the pillars behind me being here. So for the first time, I'll say it again, I'm grateful. Thank you so much for the support, and thank you so much for the help. She said flattered. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. But as an HR professional, you are supposed to be a friend to both management and employees, and you are stuck in the middle. And you're expected to be fair to both sides. How difficult a task is this?
Okay, as an HR person, the role requires that you are fair, because you provide guidance on people issues, and people have different needs. And so as an HR person, it's important that you are fair. You have a balanced representation of both the employer and the employee. So a friend, yes, you can say a friend, but I'll prefer to say that you have to be fair.
Management has most of the power in any organization, and when you stand up for the employees, you be standing against management, who you want to call the shot. Do you sometimes feel isolated?
In HR, HR has moved away from the old era where it was purely administrative. HR has become very strategic. So you don't feel isolated. You have a seat around the table, and so you are part of the management decision making right from the start. You are responsible for the planning in terms of capacity, identifying the needs of the organization in terms of the roles that are required for that organization to be able to succeed. And every organization has a strategic intent, vision and mission, so as part of HR, you are supposed to determine what roles that are required to be able to succeed.
Why do we still focus or see HR as an administrative unit? It's still that you're talking about we moving away from that, but as at now, some so-called big institutions still see HR as just administrative roles.
HR is no longer seen as administrative role. I mean, we have moved on. HR is now strategic. HR is...
What makes it strategic? Isn't it words? I mean, what will make it strategic?
It's strategic because it's part of the planning process. Without HR, I'm not sure if all the executives are trained as HR persons to be able to identify skill set required for particular roles. HR is also not just based on recruitment. HR cuts across so many areas that impact on people management. It includes recruitment, performance management, compensation and benefits, employee engagement, and sometimes it even impacts on the families of the people. So it's not just administrative. Administrative is part. The administrative part is just the write a letter for me, communicate to all staff, those kind of things. We've moved on, and that can be done in any other discipline or department. So HR has moved
But again,
away.
you ask people, and before this interview, when did a survey, most people feel that I can be an HR officer. They don't have any knowledge in HR. Again, they think it's an administrative role. So how do we now move away from it being just that to all these things you're talking about?
Okay. A lot of people think that HR is easy. HR is probably one of the difficult, disciplines or areas within any organization, because when people don't know what to do with an individual, they say go to HR. You see, but it's not like that. It probably
is it a counseling unit? Can I put it that way?
It is not just a counseling unit. As part of the HR responsibilities, you also end up, having to counsel people because the people are your responsibility. So whatever happens to the person that you have engaged in the organization becomes your responsibility. Not just your responsibility, it's a role that is shared by the line manager of the individual and yours, but there's a department that is largely responsible for people. So yes, you do counseling. You take care of the person, you train the person, you develop them, you encourage them, you make sure they feel empowered, to do what you brought them into the organization to do, and also what they themselves aspire to become.
But back then, I think in 2011, the then executive director of the Institute of Human Resource Management practitioners, I think was Mr. Kojo Asare-Bediako, indicated that human resource management was here to make a transition from its routine administrative phase to a strategic one. Some still feel this has not changed much. Could this be the case?
I think that we've moved on. I think that people, some people are just still stuck in the past. But HR has moved away from being just administrative to very strategic.
You said that,
yes.
But over the years...
And we are here now. We've moved away from when we used to be referred to as personnel manager, where you would just have to write letters and information or instructions are handed down from the executive for you to just implement. It's no longer that way. HR is part of the policy formulation, custodians of the policy, they provide guidance and basically, advise management as to what to do and what not to do in terms of people management within the broad framework of, let's say, the labor law. You need to understand the labor law to be able to guide management to work within the local framework.
But over the years, there's been consistent calls from CEOs from corporate Ghana to move away from just partnering with human resource to including HR strategic management. Has that been changed, or are they listening?
I think that HR, like I said, is very strategic. Now, a lot of organizations are actually creating roles like HR business partners.
Because it used to just be they outsource to an HR unit and they get personnel for them, but in-house, that wasn't the case.
No, that's different. It's also a new phenomenon. You're talking about outsourcing. I just want to address the issue of HR strategic partnering, okay? Because HR wants to be part of the business. And, we try to have time for our people, listen to our people. And therefore, it's important to assign an individual, let's say an HR person, to a particular department to sit with them, address all their HR needs. And that's why we call them the HR business partners. Hitherto, the HR department will be, there, and other departments will come to them. So you have a lot of people coming to HR, to ask for one thing or the other. But once you have HR business partners as the new way of managing people, it gives more focus, it gives people, employees, more attention, and to be able to talk to an individual, especially when it becomes a bit personal. You have one point of reference that you can go to seek, HR redress.
How would you look at it from your role 10 years or 5 to 8 years ago to now? Has the profession evolved?
I think it has evolved. Within the last 10 years, much hasn't changed, because I think I came into HR when it was just about changing from those era of personnel management kind of HR into the more strategic role of HR. So since then, I think that it has been upward looking. Yeah.
But you again realize that from what you're saying, talking about administrative roles and it's moving into a different, what you're talking about, it has evolved to a more strategic HR now. But do we understand it? Do we understand that?
I think most people understanding. And just to go back to the question you asked about everybody wanting to be in HR, I'm sure it's because everybody wants to go into HR is creating that situation where you feel that people just don't understand.
Because I asked that because many HR professionals have, experienced the pain of low credibility at least of a couple of times in their career. Some feel undervalued as HR. So HR isn't really taken seriously as sales and accounting and, finance. Is this a very common occurrence? And what have you experienced it? Yourself, have you experienced it before?
I'm surprised to hear that you said some HR persons have not been valued. If you know your worth, I think that you will be valued. Sometimes when you take a role, you have to take the role, and make it the way you want it to be.
At some meetings from where you reside, your outfit, aren't you neglected? They call sales, they call finance, and this is not for HR. Does it happen?
I haven't experienced that,
I
honestly.
see.
From wherever I have been, it's a very organized environment, and HR is critical. Maybe I have been lucky to be associated with organizations that see HR as a critical partner. And so I have not experienced, situations where HR is ignored. And that's what I'm saying, that you need to know your stuff. You need to understand the role that you have taken. You need to play it to the fullest. And so if you are adding value and you're providing the necessary guidance, I don't think that you will be ignored. Because HR is strategic.
Are you saying that for those HR professionals complaining that they are neglected by the institutions, they are not being professionals and not taking their roles seriously?
It depends on the organization. And, there are several organizations and people place importance on different things, you see. So I think that HR is very important wherever you go. It's a universal role. It depends on the individuals that you work with, whether they understand the importance of HR. But I feel that as an HR
but
person,
how would you make the institution understand? That's a very important point making. How would you make the institution understand that, yes, HR is a very important news organization and must be included in decision making?
Okay, that would also depend on you as an individual and the value that you add to the organization. If the role that you are performing in itself, people don't see the essence, people don't feel your presence, they don't see the outcomes of your actions, obviously, they may not feel that, you are important. But you need to make your presence felt. You need to make whatever actions that you are putting up come alive. You need to make people feel your presence, put strategies in, let the people speak for you as an HR person, because whatever strategies or activities that you come up with, people eventually end up talking about it and they want more. So it is the actions or the initiatives that you come up with, that is what make people actually want more of you. Okay, so everybody else in the organization will be part of this initiative that you come up, and they begin to see how it is impacting on their lives, it's impacting on their roles, how they themselves are beginning to change. Because as an HR, one of the key responsibilities is also to help create the culture of the organization. So then everybody wants an environment where they will feel inspired, they will feel happy, they will have a peace of mind to be able to deliver what they're capable of, even to the extent that when they come to work, they don't think about the family. So it depends on the practices, the policies you've put in place, some of the benefits that make them feel comfortable, that will make them feel that HR is needed, HR is important. And so wherever they are, they will call you to the table.
What then, in your opinion, what then would be a hallmark for a good HR team? What would you call that?
Knowledgeability, understanding HR, being fair, basically, when I say being fair, that is applying the policy as fair as possible so that whatever you do to A, you will do to B. It's all about being fair. So for an HR person, you must have high credibility. High credibility.
Right. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Hard Truth, and we are proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes and Dawa Industrial City and Pulse Fitness Ghana. Mrs. Amma Lawson, Head of Human Resource Heritage Bank Limited. Welcome again to The Hard Truth.
Thank you.
Yes, as competition grows and the pursuit of profit becomes more value to the people, putting people first becomes a challenge for many organizations. Now, human resource portrays itself as a trusted advisor to management and the staff alike. However, some believe that as a department, it is purely there to support senior management. In an increasingly competitive world, is the HR department becoming a foe to the worker?
Like I said earlier, HR is there for the people. It's not there for the senior executives. It's there for the people at all levels. Before an organization is set up, there has to be a framework, which is the HR policy. The HR policy guides the relationship between the employer and the employees. So HR does not create a forum for only the senior managers, because by the time you are engaged, there is a policy, there's a framework within which you operate.
No, but as an HR officer, you also serve as in the interest of the employer, that's the organization. And so I'm asking, how are you able to do that? Because sometimes employees want something, management says no, and management says make it happen as an HR head. How do you go about that?
Well, it does not happen in my, workplace.
But realistically, it happens sometimes.
Well, I've heard people say that, and that's where you are probably asking this question, as in you are serving the interests of the executive. Like I said, there has to be a framework within which, we operate, and that actually is it's what advises the relationship between the employer and employee. You communicate, every employee understands, what is supposed to be done in the organization. When it comes to benefits, everybody understands clearly the policy of the organization with regards to compensation. Where policies are clearly communicated, there is no confusion. Where policies are clearly implemented, as it's supposed to be, there won't be a situation where management will just hand instructions to HR to implement. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, because we do things per policy. If you're doing things per policy, which is supposed to guide our relationship, then there shouldn't be a situation where, information is handed down. I believe these things happen in organizations where there are no policies. And I know that there are some organizations where there are no policies, no procedures, you have no particular way of doing, a particular thing. So anybody does anything to the interest.
Let me tell you what Ruth Cornish said. She is an independent HR consultant in the UK. She said, I've seen cases where HR staff deemed to be employee focused, I actually get rid of. And I've been in HR for almost my career, and while we are very much there to help initially, that has evolved to other extremes. Don't you share her view? So initially you go in, yes, I want to help the employees, and the story is different. Management wants something else. Doesn't that happen?
You see, like I said, for an HR person, one of the key traits you must have is to be fair and to be principled. In my career, I have tried to be fair, and I'm a principled person. So what I say I will do is what I would, or what the policy says I should do is what I would do. Where there's a friction between what the policy says and what management is saying, you need to be able to stand up and explain, the policy clearly to senior managers and employees. It depends on the individual or the leadership. If the leadership is still bent on handing down information or instructions that will impact on employees, you need to be a strong person, be fair for the employees and the employer, and be able to put your point across.
Would you disagree with, say, Kerry Cooper, a professor at the Organizational Psychology and Health at Lancaster University Management School? He says that, make no mistakes, HR are double agents and smiling assassins. Will you share his view? Are you smiling assassins?
That's an interesting position. But it's, like I said, it's a very difficult role to play, because you are also an employee. Don't forget that you are also an employee of the same organization, but the role that you are playing in will require that you speak for both the employer and the employee.
Someone works their whole life in an institution for 20 years. They are going through downsizing. HR makes some people go. You call them, you saw them yesterday, said nothing. The issue has come on the table. Call Akusia, dismiss me or fire me and give me some benefits. Now, I'm very nice with you, and you come sit with me and tell me that maybe you find another job for 20 years. So in a situation like this, most people see HRs as hard people. Would you call yourself as a hard woman?
I won't say that. I'm not a hard person. You see, before an organization goes through a process of letting people go, like I said, it's all a strategic decision. It means that the organization has gotten to a level where they will have to let people go in terms of restructuring or process re-engineering. Could be downsizing as a result of cost management. Could be any reason. That's why I'm saying that if you feel that your HR is asking you, or HR is the one who is doing the letter, and therefore HR is the difficult person, then you are not being fair to the HR person. It is just an implementation of the process, and that has to be done by a particular department, and this resides with HR. So it is not the HR person that is saying that go. It is HR that has to do that cutting.
Smiling assassin again.
If I have to put it, HR that has to write that letter. I also indicated to you that HR has other administrative, responsibilities. So much as we do the strategy, you do the policy formulation, you provide all the advice and guidance, you also necessarily must write the letter, because you are the liaison person for that individual, when it comes to the employer-employee relationship.
Most people before this interview told us we find it very difficult to go to our HR to tell them what we want to tell them. I mean, are the HR people difficult people to approach?
I don't think so. HR people are not difficult people to approach. I think it's just the perception that if you are not careful, this is where the letter will come from. They are the same people who hire you, and if you have to be let go, that is the same place where the letter will come. So I think it's just a perception. HR shouldn't be a place where you should be afraid to go. We are open, HR people, and I speak for all HR persons here. We are very open. We are very nice people, But then the thing is that as an HR person, like I said, and I keep saying this, you have to be fair. You have to be very objective. I think it's the objectivity, that we practice that makes people afraid. I'm not sure if people are really afraid, but if you're saying that people are afraid, maybe you'll be told the truth. And a lot of people cannot stand the truth, So if anybody is saying that they are afraid to go to HR, what is it that they are afraid of? I'm not sure what they are afraid of. Are they afraid that they will be told the truth? So, for example, somebody wants their role changed, because they are not happy with their role. You have to start, the conversation must start with your line manager. Is there a vacancy within your department? If it's not in your department, are there vacancies within the organizations that you are capable of? So you may not be happy with the current role. you may want to be moved to another department. But the question is, are you prepared for that new role? Are you capable of that new role? If you have been in an organization for 20, 30 years on the same role, which is unlikely, but some people actually tell me that they've been on one role for a long time. For example, do you think that you'll be capable of doing a new role, away from what you are used to over 20 years or 30 years or so? So these are the challenges that individuals or employees themselves go through. And maybe they are afraid that they will be told the truth. And that is why they don't want to come to HR. But at least if you don't want to come to HR, you should talk to your line manager, who will start the conversation or will come to HR on your behalf, to discuss the issues.
The Labour Act 2003 Act 651 is supposed to protect employees, but concerns have been raised on the effective application of the law. A senior HR manager at Anglo Gold, Shanti Kweku Kennedy, admitted that one of the key challenges confronting HR in recent times is the inability to interpret the Labour Act and able to relate it to workplace challenges in the face. Doesn't he raise serious questions or serious concerns here? Do we apply the Labour Act in our workplaces?
That will also depend on the situation he's faced with, because the labor law has been in existence for so long and it covers so many areas. So it will depend on what the situation that he is faced with and what the labor law provides. I tell you, like I said, HR is very difficult. It's one of the difficult situations because you're dealing with human beings who themselves change. Okay, human situations change, human needs will change, human behaviors also change. So it becomes very difficult when you are presented with a situation and you have a framework, to apply, because even though you can apply the framework, the situation is slightly different, and therefore strictly applying the policy or the framework becomes a bit skewed or difficult. So yeah, I can see where he's coming from, but I am not sure exactly what he was presented with that he made the statement that he made. Yeah.
The high unemployment rate in the country has generated a situation where some employees are, taken advantage of. In your view, is the Ghanaian worker assertive enough in fighting for their rights? A lot of people are applying for a role, and when you come, they tell you, we'll give you this much, but you can get more, but the numbers are high. What do you do?
I'll still go back to a situation in an organization where policies are formulated. You have your policies. So once you engage, and this should start right from the recruitment stage, where people know and understand that there is a framework, there's a structure in this organization, and this is how things are done in this organization. So you should know, for example, how much this role that you're applying earns in the industry. Okay, you should know. And I don't think that employers are that...
Knowing that thousands of people have applied for the same job, and as a panel, you realize that some are quoting low amounts that the organization can pay in a sec. And then someone comes very qualified and mentions the right amount, like, oh, let's go for the least amount. Aren't you taking advantage, or isn't the employer taking advantage of that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, in a structured organization where there are let's say, skills, salary skills, or things are put in place to guide, like I said, to guide the relationship of the employer and the employee. I don't think that employees are taken advantage of. And I've also indicated that as an HR person, you have to be fair. Okay, one of the critical traits is credibility. So once you know that there is a structure or there's a skill to apply to various roles, that is what should be applied. I don't think that just by the fact that anybody coming in to say, I want 2 CDs, you want to take it doesn't work, because yes, you may want to give the 2 CDs, but over time, people talk in organizations. People, to an extent that People even share their pay slips. So very soon they will get to know that this person is taking this and this person is taking that. And you start creating problems for yourself as an organization. So it is better to apply the policies as you have, crafted. And it's very important to communicate for all employees to understand, where the organization is going, what their benefits are. So once you have a situation like that, you as an HR person, you can go home and sleep. And everybody understands. Obviously, there will continue to be issues. Like I said, employee needs change, human behaviors change. So all those issues will come up. But as much as possible, there will be some, peace and quiet.
Research has shown, Antiama, that change management seems to be one of the top trials of human resource practitioners in today's talent economy, where it's up to the HR to keep up with the pace of international transformation and to understand the various trends of the workforce. How are the HR professionals measuring up to this challenge?
Change is difficult.
Yep.
Change is very, very difficult. And for HR, human being, you are dealing with human beings. You are dealing with people who, it's difficult for them to change. So as an HR person, like I said, you will have to be fair. You will need to be strong and apply the policies as they come. It is difficult also for an HR person who do not understand the framework. For a person who does not understand what they are doing and the role itself. I must tell you, HR is tough. It's a difficult discipline within any organization.
So it being tough, is there because I know midwives in the UK periodically review their course and they upgrade themselves. Is there any thing like that? Do we upgrade your knowledge in HR as time unfolds?
Oh yes, within HR, one of the core roles is also training and development. So every organization, every employee in the organization gets trained, and HR also gets trained, because some of the training programs that come in also cut across HR. So HR practitioners constantly, need to upgrade themselves, need to see the new trends, the new applications. To an extent, you also have to start dealing with case studies from other organizations.
But do you do it by yourselves, or there is a body that says every 6 months, all HR practitioners in Ghana must come and upgrade themselves? Is there anything like that?
I know there is the Chartered, the HR institution in Ghana that offers training, but I don't know if there is a timeline for HR practitioners to go, as you're saying, every 6 months to train. But for every institution, there are so many training programs that you can't even attend all, both local and international. So we are always availing ourselves to trainings locally and international. But you see, training also, you as an individual have a responsibility to play in your own personal development. So much as the organization can schedule you for training, you yourself should be able to read, on your own. These days you can Google and check on so many information, check on case studies, and read by yourself.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching The Hard Truth, proudly brought to you by Murphy Homes, Dawa Industrial City, and Paul's Fitness Gym. I'm Lawson, General Manager HR, Heritage Bank Limited, is still here. Antiama, there's just few opportunities, but many qualified applicants who sometimes scramble for, some little jobs. How has the increase in unemployment affected the recruitment process?
I always say to candidates or people looking for jobs that there are jobs. There are jobs. I don't think that we have many qualified people, and that is why they seem to claim that we can't find jobs. First of all, you need to, for an organization who is recruiting, you need to know what you need. You need to plan what do you need. Okay, once you know what you need, then you can go for it. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, I'm not sure what you'll be finding out there.
Right.
All right. And once you you know exactly what you need, which will involve the job description of the role, which will include both the technical skills and the soft skills. Okay. Once you know all these things, then you are ready to go out there and look for the person that best fits your description. So I say that there are jobs. There may not be people ready for such jobs.
Many job seekers are frustrated because they have applied several jobs and have not received any feedback. In your experience, what are some of the deficiencies you encounter when reviewing applications, that comes to your table?
The organization, before they set out to search for people they're looking for, they plan. And you will be looking out for the people with skill set or traits that fit the description that you're looking for. So people would apply. And in fact, trust me, when you put out any application or job advert, you can receive over thousands and thousands of applications. Persons who qualify and those who don't qualify. All right. I think people don't take their time to read the job requirements properly, and so they may not meet the criteria.
Right.
Persons who take their time to read the job requirements will have to prepare themselves, understand that they meet the criteria that the employer is seeking before they apply. A lot of people will have one-size-fits-all CV. And sometimes you receive an application.
Is that a good thing? I mean, to have a CV
that
fits
I'm
for
saying
everything.
That people just don't prepare and they don't read the requirements. One-size-fits-all application may have it could have an address of another organization being sent to you. I am not sure what they thought about before putting the application, so they probably have done copies of them and they just
email it,
send it to all organizations. I mean, if you come across a CV like that, as a recruiter, I don't think that you will select it because, first of all, it's not even addressed to you. Okay, so if you have an individual who has sent several of these CVs to organizations, obviously you may not get any response because I will not select that CV to even go through because it's not even addressed to me. And so it's very important for job seekers to read job advert requirements.
Yes, but in reading that, and I know very well that I don't qualify, what of learning on the job? Some say I have a degree. I mean, you can't learn for a specific job, so I will learn on the job. What of that?
Okay, so like I said, first of all, it's your resume that speaks for you, okay? It's your resume that has to be selected before we see who is behind the resume. So it starts with preparing a convincing CV. Most people who are first or entry levels may not have any experience, but by the attention that they've given to their CV, it looks very well done, okay, with no mistakes, because you will come across CVs with full of mistakes. So many mistakes. Clearly, the person behind it doesn't pay attention to details. Otherwise, they could have read their CVs themselves and noticed that there are a lot of errors. So it does not matter whether you have experience or not. You need to pay a lot of attention to your CV because that is what will do the first talking for you. Your CV must be noticed and selected before you can, we can proceed to the next stage.
Most people say that, especially most unemployed graduates, say that I'm not going to apply anymore because they have selected already. They just put in the ad out there just for whatever sake. Is that true?
It is not true. It's not entirely true. I personally believe that there are gems out there. If when I say gem, I mean gold. Gem as in GEM, out there. There are still good people out there. So even though you may identify an individual, nothing stops you from talking to other people and you realize that there are other even better people out there. So I keep saying
but before institutions put out adverts for certain people, Have they selected already, and is it just for advertising's sake? I mean, people say that a lot.
No.
They have their person
no.
already. This is just a face.
No. You see, there are stages of recruiting. It could also be in a company policy that we will start the recruitment from within. We will fill vacancies from within. It is also to give opportunity to persons who have been on certain roles for a long time. You remember I mentioned that there are persons who have been on their roles for a long time, wishing to move to other roles. So as part of the organization's
do
policy...
they job watch? Do you remember job watching?
Yes. As part of the recruitment, an organization may, as part of their policy, indicate that we will fill vacancies from within first. It is when we don't find, suitable persons from within that we will go out.
Right.
However, once they are out, it means that they did not find the person from within. I am not saying that all organizations have the same policy as in we filling the position from within. Some people may have that policy, others may not. And that will mean that every application that is vacant will be advertised. Okay, once it is advertised, it means that they are looking for people. So you put your best foot forward as a candidate looking for a job. And it is not every job that you apply that will contact you. So if you feel frustrated, you are just putting undue pressure on yourself. But you need to make sure, please, read the requirements of the job. Make sure that you yourself qualify, okay, before you put your application through. Try and meet the requirements of the advert. Sometimes it even asks you for, let's say, for an example, let's say it's an entry level and we're looking for first degree holders. Then let's say somebody with a diploma will apply. It means that you don't qualify for this job. Immediately you are out. That's what happened. So if you don't take your time to read the job requirement, you apply for so many jobs and you will feel rejected because nobody is getting back to you.
You talked about getting the CV done properly, and that's the first point of call. Now, you have been in HR we've established that for some time, for 10 years now. Do job seekers, especially the youth, really understand how to search for a job and prepare for the interview? I mean, the CV is done. What of the interview? Do you know how to really prepare for it? What do we look out for if I'm called to come for an interview? What are the things to look out for?
Some young people do know what is expected of them, and others don't. I mean, some people just don't prepare at all. And for those who take their time, prepare for the interview, it shows. Those who don't prepare, come with CVs all over the place. The CV is not done properly. Their dates are not in line. They themselves have forgotten what they put in their CVs. They can't simply talk to the CVs that they claim to have put together. A lot of mistakes here and there. Apart from that,
let's say the CV is right.
Okay.
How do we prepare for the interview? I have my CV, I've read through it, it's fantastic, I've forwarded it to you, I've been called to come for an interview. How do I prepare for it?
You need to do a little research on the organization that has invited you, for an interview. You need to know even the location ahead of time. You need to even choose your outfit for the interview. You need to prepare. You need to rehearse what you intend to do. These days, there's so many information on the internet, so you don't have to even ask anybody to help you. If you know anybody in that organization who can give you some information about that organization, then do. Otherwise, you can Google information. You can even Google interview question and answers for that role that you have been invited for. It is just to guide you. It is just to prepare your mouth. There are times when I've had to attend interviews and I stand in front of the mirror and I speak to myself to see my smile, my pose. When I'm asked a question like this is how I will say it, So it's important that you prepare. And it's just to lead you, into the interview, because very important questions or very critical questions that are asked usually in interview is, can you introduce yourself to the panel, for example? And if you have not prepared for a question like this, you can imagine what you will be saying to the panel. It's very important. So if you have ever done interviews, you should know by now that these questions are very frequently asked questions. If you haven't done any interview before, you should prepare. That is the more reason why you should Google some interview question and answers and ask yourself questions. Those questions may not necessarily be asked, but you know what? You would have prepared yourself, adequately enough to be able to maneuver, through.
What do you make of the recruitment agencies and the role they play in recruitment process?
Outsourcing has become a new phenomenon, and it's also part of human resource management. Most of the time, all these decisions are very strategic to organizations. You get to an age in the life cycle of the organization where you think that certain roles may not be core. Okay, where the roles are not core roles, it is better for you to outsource it to experts who can do it better for you so that you can focus on your core jobs. Whether we like it or not, this phenomenon has come to stay. It's now very, popular for organizations to outsource certain parts of their HR to organizations. And when I say outsourcing, there are so many forms of outsourcing. So is human resource. All right. So recruitment is one area, even though it's a core responsibility of HR and the HR department, it is very, very, the workload is a lot. It's very tiring. So if you want to outsource just the recruitment process to an outsourcing company, yes, you can do that. So HR can interact more with the employees. They can do more of the things that the time that recruitment would have taken, spend that time with employees.
Right.
Yeah. So it's okay to outsource some of the workload to an outsourcing agency.
But so how has their activities reflected on the changing role of the HR department in the organization?
I think that it has enhanced it. I must say that it has enhanced the HR role because, like I said, the HR has to do so many things, from recruitment, performance management, compensation, employee engagement, so many of them. So that if HR department, and usually, which is not very well resourced, have to do all these things, you can tell that they will be bogged down, than having to spend more time providing the support, motivating your staff to deliver on the job. It is better to outsource some of the things that take your time or are not core, or may not be critical to a recruitment agency or an HR outsourcing company to help you.
Right.
For example, employee verification process, which takes a lot of time, because you'll be dealing with a third party, and they are not obliged to get back to you. So if you, as an HR department, want to get bogged down, waiting for responses to come, which may never come or will come at a later date, that means you end up slowing the process down. So a role like this can be outsourced to a third-party outsourcing agency to help you so that you can hasten with your recruitment process as you do the interviews or as you are onboarding. All these checks are also being done in the background for you.
Although the recruitment agencies reduce the amount of work, you said, and time the HR department can, put together in recruiting others, the agencies, especially the unlicensed ones, are taking advantage of the inadequacy of jobs in the country to cheat and defraud prospective job seekers. Are you satisfied with the regulations in section or in the sector?
Well, I think that you said that some of these agencies are not licensed, and if they're not licensed, they shouldn't be there in the first place. Okay, so those who are licensed are doing a good job, and I have had a stint with a recruitment agency myself, and so I know that they're doing a good job. They don't do things in isolation. They always work with the organization to plan what the organization themselves wants and then they deliver. And they deliver to the organization's specification. So the licensed ones are doing a good job, and they always work with the organizations that they represent.
I see, but some are also of the view that even the registered recruitment agencies are exploiting job seekers against Section 7, subsection 7 of the Ghana Labour Act, 651 also stipulates that the agency shall refund 50% of the agency amount if the placement or the job placement or people do not get their job after 3 months. This doesn't happen a lot, does it?
You see, there are different organizations and different practices. So as an organization or as a company that wants to use an agency, you need to understand their operations, okay? Their operations has to fit into your plan. I don't see a situation where...
Don't we fit what the labor says, whatever institution it is? Can't we fit this very section into every institution, especially for recruitment agencies? Isn't it an important part of it?
Where the agency...
So in case I don't get a job after 3 months, I'm paid 50% of my money.
I mean, to the employer or the employee?
The job
or
seeker, the candidate.
And you are saying this in situations where the employer, the employee or the job seeker has registered and paid.
Exactly.
You see, recruitment itself, the whole process is quite lengthy, and it requires a lot of paperwork. I want to believe that these agencies that ask candidates to register with them also communicate clearly with them and let them understand what the fees that they are paying is for.
Right.
Okay, so if you are paying the fee to be a member of the agency and also paying for other administrative processes, then you should understand, if you don't get the job, that money has already been used to fund
the law.
processes.
50% must be paid back to you. Don't you agree with that?
Well, like I'm saying, it depends on how much they are paying. Even if you pay 1 cedi, what you're saying is that the law should refund. The law requires that
50 pesos.
50 pesos should be refunded to you. If it's the law, then it should apply. If that is what the law requires, then that should apply. And therefore, in setting up your fees, you can and communicate. And I think that the agencies have to be very clear to the candidates who are applying to let them understand that this fee you are paying is for administration and not for the fact that if you find a job, it comes to me, or if I find you a job, it comes to me. There are so many processes that recruitment goes through. So I would advocate that agencies should be very clear in their communication, okay, to the candidates so they understand clearly. But if the law requires that whatever fee, and say, so we need to be very clear what portion of the fee should be refunded, then it should apply.
Finally, what do you think can be done to improve, again, the regulations of the recruitment agencies?
I think they are regulated. The regulator has to do their regular checks to ensure that people just comply. I think it's more about regulation, and I believe that the regulator is adequately resourced to be able to get their persons to inspect or go around and inspect these advertising agencies. And as a regulator, I want to believe that they know where they are located, so they will have to do their regular visits and be part of the process. They can even mystery shop and see what is going on, as in whether the agencies are doing what they said they will do. Okay, and let the laws apply.
I'm sure viewers are out there thinking, are there any job opportunities now at Heritage Bank they can apply? Is there anything like that now?
Well, Heritage Bank is a new bank.
Yep.
We aspire to be a world-class indigenous bank. And so as a new bank, obviously, we will need people to support us. Currently, we have only 8 branches across the country, 2 in Kumasi, the rest of them are in Accra. As we continue to expand, by all means, we will need people to help us. So why not? We are inviting CVs. from qualified person.
For which roles?
For,
which roles
for
are you
all,
expected?
Several roles, especially persons with experience in the banking industry. Okay. And it also doesn't matter if you don't have experience in the banking industry. We will assess you appropriately, and we want people who demonstrate a can-do attitude, people who are willing to learn, as at entry levels, and we will, consider such applications as long as your attitude is right.
But is there any email address to forward our CVs to?
Yes, it's info@heritagebank.com.
All right, so send your CVs to Lawson at info@heritagebank.com. Thank you so much. .ga, so info@heritagebank.com.gh. I'm grateful. Thank you so much for taking to the hard truth. Mrs. Lawson is the head HR for Heritage Bank Limited. If you have any questions or comment to her, send it to our social media platforms and she'll be ready to answer them. You've been watching The Hard Truth. My name is Nana Akusia Kunedu Asante Samuels. Catch a repeat of the program tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Thank you so much. Good night.